who told you? Who told you that Israel, the so-called modern Israel, that the inheritance, really the better question would be the inheritance of Israel, but who told you that Israel was not in Africa? Where did this story, this lie come from? Well, it's very interesting when you really recognize what's going on in the world, and we bring this to this point right here, right? All these protests, when you see what's going on in the so-called state of Israel. We're going to answer the other question. We could answer that question now, why the state of Israel is so small, because that's the only bit they was able to steal and get away with it, right? Before real Israel woke up, before the lost sheep of the house of Israel, who happened to be black peoples, woke up. And not just black people over here in the Americas, right? But mainly us over here in the Americas. That's why I have to ask the question, who told you, right? Or where did you get this from? That Israel, right, is not in Africa. It's the same racist, it's the same evil racist people, the same religious Nazis. It's the same ones that have gone around with this lie called the curse of Ham, right? That black people are the way they are because of a lying curse. I mean, that's a blasphemy, because the Bible doesn't even speak no curse against Ham, against Cam, so forth and so on. In fact, in the Bible, some of the closest relationship of the real Israelites are with so-called Africans. Why? Because Israel is a tribe, one of the tribes of the people that we will call African, because actually Israel, or the inheritance, or even this little bit of real estate, the seacoast property, is a part of the continent of Africa. That's why I have to ask ones and ones, who told you that Israel is not in Africa? If you can see this article in the background right here for a moment, this is about some race wars, right? They're already trumpeting, right? The so-called Jews that call themselves Jews, and some of their white supremacist allies, pseudo-Christians, even a lot of them call themselves Israelites too. I mean, it's so very interesting. You know, there's another point I wanted to touch on, but let's just focus on this, where they're saying these anti-African demonstrations in Tel Aviv. The media is spinning it that these are so-called Africans, right, that are coming, you know, to Israel to get some of the benefits of Israel. And you know where they give the monies that goes to Israel, where it really comes from? It comes from you Hebrews, you lost Hebrews, so-called black people in the Americas. You know, where they pull back money and resources from the inner cities, and where lost sheep of the house of Israel are, the black people that don't know that they are Hebrews and Israelites. They take the monies out of those programs, right? And this has been going on for the past 40 years. That's why when you look at the historical timeline between this and that, it becomes very, very obvious. You know, they said if you want to find out how a crime, or who did it in a crime, who done it, you know, they said to trace the monies. But I want to focus on this money, right? Who told y'all, right? And who told you, right, that Israel, right, the so-called even the state of Israel, where it's located, is not in Africa? The same ones here that want to say about the so-called African so-called immigrants, because many of them are Hebrews, right, who have been scattered all over the world, but also mainly in Africa, right, who are returning to their rightful inheritance, and the same ones that brought to you the curse of Ham. The Bible doesn't speak anything about a curse of Ham. Let me just put that straight up. You go to Genesis chapter 9, and what you're going to find out is there was a curse on Canaan. But see, this is how the liars lie. They told you about a curse of Ham, and you have these fools run around trying to argue around that instead of just look at the Bible and say, there's no such thing. There's no such thing. Right? But, they say the cover up is worse than the lie. And that's what you see in these anti-African demonstrations in Israel, anti-African demonstration in Tel Aviv. Now we got this off of some site which actually supports this, but they point out that that these race wars are so-called supposed to happen. If they do, and if and when it does, that little so-called state, that small country is going to be in the eye of the storm, brothers and sisters, because this is a crime, right? Not just against humanity. This is a crime against the Almighty. These lies and where these lies have gotten humanity. Once again, who told you that Israel is not in Africa? Right? They say, this is not Africa. This is not Africa. They said these rallies have turned, this is back in 2012, turned violent with attacks on Africans. No. Attacks on Kushi niggers. See, they call black people, all black people. You know, even if you say you're a black Israelite, they'll call you a Kushi. Because Kushi, which refers to Ethiopia, Amos 9:7, are you not as the children of Ethiopia, and to me, the children of Israel? Notice that verse. That's why they got a handful of Ethiopians who were like off the radar, not really knowing what the real geopolitical situation. That's why a lot of the so-called Falashas, Beta Israel, the black, the Ethiopian Jews, they're running around now saying, oh, it's racist. How they treating us like that? We serving the army. We help like this and like that. They don't want to believe their brothers over here in the West, the Ethiopians abroad, the Ethiopian Hebrews, those are the royal order. And now they're being treated just like niggas there, maybe a little better. Couldn't they play the divide and conquer? They'll say, oh, you are Ethiopian? You are Ethiopian? Okay, yeah, we'll accept you. You're acceptable. What about you? For Nigeria? Oh no, even though that might be a Igbo, right? A Igbo. Now they say the Lemba people, because you see certain people will fight for their rights, right? And certain people recognize the big picture, right? And they're not going to take a bribe against their brothers and say, oh, well, we are Israelites because we're acceptable, but they are not. They're just Africans. You know what I'm saying? But who told you? Who told you that? So the tax on Africans is not just a tax on so-called tax on black people, right? And grocery shop windows being smashed and so forth and so on. The crowds running around saying, this is not Africa, right? They say, let's stop talking. Let's start expelling. See, y'all don't recognize the big picture. That's why once again, my friend, who told you? Right? Who is the one who told you that Israel is not in Africa? Right? And before the one start to think that, oh, we're supporting the so-called Palestinians, we're supporting the whole Palestinian movement. No, I think you need to think again. We're not supporting the so-called, Palestinian movement. Right? We're supporting the Falasha movement. When I say the Falasha, that means all of the Israelites who have been exiled to the four corners of the world have a right to return to their inheritance. I mean, and the audacity of the Jews who call themselves Jews, since many of the funds that have funded the state of Israel from the very beginning were reallocated from programs that were cut to black people in America, the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But I guess it serves the lost sheep right. If they don't want to recognize who they are, then they will keep whying, crying about what's going on, right? Until the half of the story is told. Brothers and sisters, things like this will go on. So when it says anti-African, don't get fooled, so-called nigger Jews, black Hebrew, and Israelites saying, we're not African. Well, who told you that Israel, on what continent, let me ask it like this, on what continent is the inheritance of the Israelites, according to the scripture? See, everybody's focused on this little small territory, but there's a whole greater Israel. We're talking about greater Israel includes those righteous Africans. You see? And these attacks against Africans, so-called, Kushi, they call them Kushi. Over here in the West, they call them niggers. So the word nigger over here is the word Kushi over there. And it's the same old racism. It's the same old white supremacy. And until niggas stop playing this divide and conquer, right? This divide and conquer. The only division should be between the righteous, right? And the righteous Africans and the unrighteous ones, right? But that's that. That's that right there. Who told you? Who told you? I thought this was kind of interesting right here when they say this is not Africa, right? They're saying this is not Africa, right? Yet when they first wanted to, the European Ashkenazi Jews wanted to set up the state of Israel, you know where they was going? They was going to Africa, right? They were looking in Africa, right? And why they were looking in East Africa and East Africa, because that's part of greater, right? That's part of greater Israel, right? So I hope my people wake up before it's too late, because many more will have to suffer. Many more will have to die. And as Burhan Selassie said, don't ask me why, right? We came from there, right? And we return to there, right? It's our land. It's part of our land, and we have a right to it. But if you don't know the truth, if you just keep running around, right, dealing with these lies, look at the migration of the Hebrews and the Israelites, right? Now they're beginning begrudgingly to accept a little bit, because they're playing a divide and conquer, just like they did with the Beta Israel of Ethiopia. And you see them out there protesting, and some of them are beginning to wake up, and recognize the lie, and recognize how they have been hoodwinked and bamboozled, and had a lot of their heritage, like a lot of manuscripts, were stolen from them. That's a whole other issue, You see the lines going from all here, right? From all here, going to North Africa, and right down here, all of this right here along the rivers. Look at Genesis chapter 15, right? Verse 18. From here to here is all part of greater Israel. This is a foothold. Why is it that they were only able? Why is Israel so small? That's the only piece they were able to steal during the storms of what happened in the 20s and 30s, when they tried to snuff out the kingdom of the King of Kings, the conquering line of the tribe of Judah. Oh, yes. Many of them were behind that as well. But who told you that Israel is not in Africa? Are the same ones who told you you didn't have no history before slavery, that you were just a nigger. That's the same one that told you that.